I want you guys to keep me honest. I want you to keep me honest because I am heading into a weekend, right, where I am going to have the opportunity to actually set up this desk. So this should be one of the last times that you're watching a Zealandism that has this particular point of view. Maybe 5 or 6 more Zealandisms over the next couple of days, and then it should change. If it doesn't change, you need to make fun of me. You need to clown me. You need to abuse me emotionally. Maybe even physically. You see me in the street in New York, you just flick me in the back of the head or something. You need to abuse me until I actually rearrange this desk. Because I believe that I have all of the equipment to do so, to make at least the part that you can't see behind the camera look great. But what you'll see is the angle change and the lighting will be better. It'll be a whole thing. You'll notice that the change has actually occurred. And then you have to bully me into that change because bullying is effective on me. You can bully me into running. You can bully me into eating more chocolate turtles. You can bully me into putting Pipo Fraggiola back in the background. And you definitely can bully me into, rearranging the desk. There is nothing quite like collective peer pressure in the comments, right? And I also get to live with the ever-present danger of the fact that I've fallen off. I've already fallen off. I've fallen off so hard, I'm in hell. Hades is my king. I don't even know who Zeus is. I fell off so hard, I'm bouncing back around in the circle of life, according to the YouTube comments. And that's good too. That's good motivation. I changed up my facial hair, tried to create a lot more sex appeal so that I could really make the magic happen on these Zealandisms. You know what else creates a lot of sex appeal? The Europa, the what's it called? Is it the UEFA Conference League? Europa Conference League. You didn't see that transition coming because it was, and this is true, terrible. But the Europa Conference League is not terrible. Decidedly not terrible. It's actually quite fantastic. It is where dreams are made, right? The Conference League is where the biggest clubs in the world, like literally the same 5 people, just beat each other up every year. But the Conference League has created so much variety and so much incredible atmosphere and incredible storylines, and it did it again. It freaking did it again this year. But I do want to, but before we dive into like what actually happened, I do want to talk about something that has been bothering me because I always understood the point of the Champions League, right? We've got the best couple teams from each league. They get to go play in a tournament. What I've never understood is how somebody came up with the Europa League and the Conference League in the first place. Well, I mean, obviously, once you have the Europa League, you can just go for the Conference League as well. But what was the genesis of the idea that, like, hey, let's make a second competition for the teams that were good, but not quite as good as the teams in the other competition? When do they do that? I mean, unless you're making like you have the Premier League and the Championship, right? You make your Bundesliga, then your Zweite Bundesliga, then your Dritte Bundesliga, like unless you're making it leagues where you can get promoted and relegated between the 3 things, which is going to stop next year between the Champions League and the Europa League. And anyways, you couldn't get promoted out of the Europa League into the Champions League because you won your Europa League group. Like, that's not how that worked. Right? They've just created these extra competitions. It's like, oh yeah, you did pretty well in your league, so you get to play in this competition. So when you look at it on its face value, this is something, I don't know if this is just amusing that I have. I could be the only person on the face of the earth that's always been looking at the Europa League and now the Conference League is like, you won, but what did you win, right? Because obviously the Champions League is like, okay, you're the best club in Europe, right? We had this tournament with all the best clubs in Europe and then you won and you were the actual best club in Europe. But the Europa League, you're like the best good club in Europe. In the Conference League, you're like the best above average club in Europe, right? That's the closest you could get to actually crowning your achievement. Like if you wanted to put a title on your achievement. I know everybody chants like, oh, we're the champions of Europe and whatever, but you're not, right? That's why the Champions League exists in the first place. If you were good enough, you'd be able to be in the Champions League. And I don't mean to like dampen the spirit of a tournament. Like I love a great tournament, and I just started this video talking about how much I freaking love the Conference League. As much as it doesn't make sense to me in a competitive sense, I love it. Right, it is great television. It gets a lot of clubs involved that you wouldn't normally be involved. It creates a tournament that a lot of different teams can compete for. It's like creating a World Cup, except the best 32 national teams can't go. Well, all of a sudden, Mali's looking pretty good. Uzbekistan's got a hell of a shot. Right, Indonesia's a dark horse, right? Like we can open up this whole other round of opportunity. We can get New Zealand back involved. Jamaica's hanging out. Trinidad and Tobago's back on the scene, right? And I would love that tournament. It would be awesome, but also You're not going to be like the best team in the world because you won the World Cup when the 32 teams and they're not there. My competitive misgivings onto one side, though, because the Conference League deserves not bashing, which is not what I'm trying to do, just mass confusion, and I'm trying to help unpack my confusion with you, but it deserves praise because what it has done is created a cup competition that shines a light on teams like Olympiacos. Now, I have been tracking the Conference League. Obviously, if you follow along with the Twitch streams, we always stay up to date with what's happening in all 3 European competitions. And the Conference League has been a particularly wild and unique journey, which is going to get even more wild and unique next year, but particularly for Olympiacos, because Olympiacos has a couple of interesting things going on. One, very important to know, even though obviously by the end of this video, they will have won the Conference League, which is why I've already said the team's name 8 times. They didn't win the Greek League. In fact, Olympiacos managed to finish 3rd in the Greek League. They were behind PAOK Thessaloniki and AEK Athens, which there is a second particularly interesting bit to this, in that Panathinaikos, who finished 4th in the Greek League, also made a very long run in the Conference League and nearly made it a double final in Athens. Like, it was drawn out to where it could have been Olympiacos and Panathinaikos playing in Athens, the 3rd and 4th place team for a European trophy, which would have been freaking sick. But we already got one of those teams. And by the way, yeah, the final for the Conference League was in Athens. So this was just, this was a match made in heaven. And it's not like finishing 3rd in the Greek League is like finishing 3rd in the Premier League, okay? We're talking about a league that even after the victory for Olympiacos is 15th. 15th in the European coefficient, still behind mighty leagues like Norway, Austria, Switzerland, Scotland, Czechia, right? In the start of the season, this league was 20th in coefficient. Behind Denmark, Israel, Ukraine, which is literally in the middle of a war right now, Serbia, and Croatia's league, all considered better than Greece based off of the aggregate performance of those clubs in European competition. That's crazy. Right, and we've got a team 3rd place in that league and a team 4th place in that league making a run in the Conference League. So big resurgence for the Greek League in general, and in a completely unpredicted result before, especially considering Olympiacos was in the Europa League. Am I dying? And they actually finished 3rd in the Europa League group to drop down to the Conference League playoff, at which point, to make this story even more improbable, they hired a new coach, a guy named Jose Luis Mendelbar. And if he sounds familiar, that's because he coached Sevilla to a victory over Jose Mourinho's Roma in the Europa League final last year. And that dude's ended up at Olympiacos. He took over in February. His first European match was a Conference League playoff knockout against Ferencváros, which is big Hungarian team. Sorry, it took me a second. He got let go by Sevilla after they won just 2 of their first 8 league matches to start this season, and Olympiacos was more than happy to pick him up in February after, I'm assuming, he took a long vacation to the Canaries. But now that he's been picked up, we can kick this story into hyperdrive to the next round, the round of 16 in the Conference League, where Olympiacos took on Maccabi Tel Aviv from the Israeli League and lost the first leg 4-1. 4-1 at home. They lost 4-1 at home. At that point, you're thinking, surely it's over. But Maccabi Tel Aviv obviously isn't playing its home matches in Israel, so they end up playing their home match, I can't remember, somewhere in Eastern Europe. And Olympiacos actually turns it around. They take it 4-1, they go to extra time, they score 2 goals in extra time, and they win it 6-1 after losing 4-1 at home to beat Maccabi Tel Aviv and move on to the quarterfinal. And once they get to the quarterfinal, they take on a club called Fenerbahce, who we've talked about on this stream, this is Zealandism, on this channel multiple times already. Fenerbahce dropped 99 points in the Turkish league. They finished 3 points off the title. A Turkish league that is now 9th in the European coefficient, which of course we just covered, ranks all the European leagues. Fenerbahce is the heavy favorite going into this, and Olympiacos representing Greece, Fenerbahce representing Turkey. There is a long, complex history there, so this was an incredibly edgy set of matches. Olympiacos wins 3-2 at home. Fenerbahce wins 1-0 at home. Despite an Olympiacos red card, it goes all the way to penalties, and Olympiacos wins on penalties to continue an improbable upset run to the semifinal. But surely it's over, because there is one thing that you don't want to run into in the Conference League. We've already learned this. That random Premier League team that's down there, because they will murder you. They will take you out into the public square and humiliate you. They're tossing tomatoes at you. They're running in circles around you and laughing at you on their merry way to a victory. Except somehow, Olympiakos, the third team from Greece, just smacked Aston Villa. Smacked them. An Aston Villa team that finished in the top 4 in the Premier League. Now, look, down 3 goals to Maccabi Tel Aviv, that's one thing. Being able to beat Fenerbahce, that's one thing. But the crowning achievement of this run, the best team Olympiakos beat on this run, was Aston Villa. Absolutely stupid. They won 4-2 in Birmingham. They went to England and won by 2 goals. Olympiakos did. It was at this point that it just became apparent the Conference League was capable of producing utter absurdity, right? Because Aston Villa, finishing in the top 4 of the Champions League, finishes ahead of teams like Chelsea and Manchester United and Newcastle, clubs that spend money that Olympiakos could only dream of, and Aston Villa was ahead of all of them. Aston Villa is also not one of those clubs like maybe a Tottenham or a United or even a Newcastle, I guess, at this point, where they get in the Conference League, Chelsea, I guess, next year. They get in the Conference League and they're not necessarily fully emotionally invested. Villa is desperate to get them that European trophy. This would be a famous night for Villa, and they still got rocked. I cannot find a statistical or mathematical or logical way to explain the fact that Olympiakos managed to beat Aston Villa 6-2 on aggregate. It boggles the mind. It makes absolutely no sense. But it set up a final between Olympiakos and Fiorentina. Now, Fiorentina sounds familiar. That's because, well, they play in Serie A. But also, they've been in a European final fairly recently. By fairly recently, I mean last year, in the Conference League, when Fiorentina lost to West Ham, again, beware the Premier League teams, 2-1. So Fiorentina is, again, a favorite, right? They are a team that has been to this final before. They have managed to navigate their way back to this final. They play in what I would classify as one of the 3 best leagues in the world right now. Maybe top 4. I don't know. I don't really want to get into the debate. It's not the point. The point is the league's really good. Definitely a top 4 league in the world. And Fiorentina is in back-to-back conference leagues and back-to-back conference league finals. But they are going to Athens. And when I tell you this final was boring, as much as the conference league was amazing, and the conference league is amazing, this final was 115 minutes of a cure for insomnia. Like, this match was 115 minutes of nothing. There was basically nothing going on. I've been invited to this like YouTuber streamer Rust, games called Rust, server, and we've been playing on that all week. And I kind of just started the stream before the final was even over, right? Because I assumed it was going to go to penalties, and then we could just watch the penalties, and that was it. But in the 115th minute, something amazing happened. I mean, it's not that amazing. I guess you could probably guess what happened, but the way that it happened was amazing to me. This goal is a lesson in surviving extra time, because if you are the one person that can still find something left in your legs to make that incisive run, to make that incisive pass, everybody else in this highlight is just devastatingly tired. Watch the reaction of everybody as this ball is cleared away. Nobody's moving. Nobody is moving. And those were not the only crazy scenes, because there was a square somewhere, I don't know where, I'm assuming wherever Olympiakos is from in Greece, and the scenes in that square were utterly absurd as the final whistle sounded out a few minutes later. You gotta love the dude on the trumpet just absolutely laying it down. It's like the Titanic in reverse. Everybody else is going absolutely crazy, but he's staying calm and he's laying down the soundtrack to a beautiful night in Olympus. This might be Mount Olympus. I honestly have no idea. But Olympiakos has won a European trophy. It is the best aggressively above average team in Europe, and that is sick. And it also accomplished something completely unheard of, really, recently, and a very, very rare thing, where it is the first European trophy ever from a new country. That does not happen very often, right? Like you think about how many European trophies have been won by clubs all over the place. The last time this happened, as far as I can recall, was Shakhtar Donetsk winning one for Ukraine in the late I think it was in 2009, or maybe like even as late as 2014. That was the last new country to get a European trophy. Here's a map of the winners of the Conference League by nation. Here's the winners of the Europa League by nation. And then here are the winners of the Champions League by nation. So congratulations to Olympiacos and to all of Greece for finally producing a European champion club. Despite all my qualifiers, I'm comfortable saying that. They're a European champion club. They deserve to celebrate like one. Trumpets.